Greetings, everybody. My name's Dan. How are we tonight? Good. Thank you for coming out on this freezing cold night here to a Rolling Stone, and this is In the Spotlight tonight. It's a little bit of a series we're running here while we have a chat to local legends in the music scene and the art scene. We have one for you tonight, but before we get to him, I just want to thank a couple of sponsors. We have a sponsor called Monster Music, and they are teaching tomorrow's rock stars today. So if we have any budding rock stars out there, Monster Music, they're for you. Any budding rock stars? One or two, I think. And then we also have Wigram Liquorland, and they are your neighbourly liquor specialists out in Wigram. I will continue with legend for tonight's In the Spotlight. His name is Mr. Al Park. Give you another handshake. How are you?
I am very well, thank you,
Very
Dan.
good. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Now, I understand you've had one or two interviews in your time?
I have
Yeah.
probably two.
Probably two interviews?
Yes.
But you've had a pretty big interview in your past, haven't you?
I don't know.
Radio New Zealand?
Oh, okay, yeah, yep.
Kim
I
Hill. We all know who she is. And hopefully I'm not as intimidating as Kim Hill.
I don't think you are, but
Oh.
in the end, she wasn't either.
No, she was a good sort.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
She was real good. Yeah, that was fun, I have to say. If this is as much fun as that was, but with no butterflies, then we'll have a good night.
Nice. So did you travel up to Wellington for that interview? No? Just over the radio?
That's why people have reminded me about that interview, and the only thing they really remember about it is not that all the stuff that I talked about so much as the fact that I didn't. I had my phone on, and so every now and again there was like friends beeping in and everything to me, and in the end she said, "Have you got your phone on?" And I said, "Yeah," and so it was kind of like a bit of a funny kind of thing, like as if I was kind of like the one responsible for that, and there was a bit of a techno klutz. But really, the day before, the producer had got COVID, and he'd put in this other guy to produce it, who had rung me that morning to set it all up, on the phone and everything, because we were Zooming, and he said to me, "Keep your phone on, because, if something goes wrong, we don't want to have any kind of having to ring you up and everything."
Yeah.
So on their instructions, I'd kept my phone on. But to everyone else, it was like, what's that idiot got his phone on for?
Have you got your phone on?
Yep.
And that's a good reminder for everyone else. If you have your phone down on focus or something like that.
Well, you never
focus
know.
mode.
Kim might ring me up.
So you're actually from the North Island?
Yeah, I'm from Wellington. I'm from Nainai Lower Hutt. That's where I grew up, which was kind of interesting.
What was that like?
It was really. I think that when you talk to people about growing up, most people will say that they grew up and that they loved the place they grew up in.
Yeah.
And that was no different for me. I wouldn't say that it was spectacular, Nainai. It was a valley, and Nainai means like sandfly or mosquito, and because it was a swamp that they.
Was this around Lower Hutt Way, is it?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
oh, yeah.
But it's a little. It's sort of up the line a little bit, from probably about 5 k's out of, from Lower Hutt. So the railway line runs through to the Wairarapa, but yeah. So all the commuters. It was the first state housing area in New Zealand.
First state housing area.
Yeah. And so it was just this blanket of state houses below our back fence. And we lived in this little enclave of private housing.
Oh, okay, yep.
My dad, I think, was maybe the last to purchase a section. There were 8 houses in the street. It was pretty nice actually, because it was in the foothills. It was native bush. It was pretty, as opposed to anything below our fence line. Our back fence line was not so pretty.
Oh, yeah.
If you can imagine, like that slate kind of, and
Yeah.
so those units and Yeah.
So it's kind of like a planned suburb in a way.
It was interesting because it was like a social experiment almost. It was the first state housing area. It also had a shopping centre, which was really super modern. You know, if you look back into the 50s and 60s, it was right on the edge of the 60s that they built this shopping centre, and it had big raised sort of grassy areas, and you had a movie theatre, the first kind of movie theatre, and right across the road had the first Olympic pool in New Zealand. So it had like lots of open spaces and all these shops. And when I always remember that when they went to open the movie theatre, they'd planted out all these beautiful flower beds and trees and everything, and it was well known for the Teddy Boys, Bodgies and Woodgies. Yeah, so I could still remember those old cars that they used to, and the night before they just went in and ripped everything out. So it ripped up all the flower beds, and there was all that kind of thing, the vandalism, and trees snapped in half and stuff. There was quite a lot of that going on in old Nainai. A bit of stabbing at school.
What school did you go to there?
Went to Nainai College.
Of course.
Yeah. I went to all the state schools in Nainai, unlike some of there's some of the kids in my street who went to more flasher schools because they were like more wealthy families.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like Nainai Primary and then Nainai
Nainai Primary,
Intermediate.
Nainai Intermediate, one of the first intermediate schools. That was cool. And then Nainai College.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I understand you're into a bit of sport at school?
Yeah, I've always been kind of into sport. I'm still into sport. Still watch the Premier League. I always think that's back when I was playing the Wunderbar on Wednesday nights, you could. I thought it was just almost my perfect night. You'd go down, you'd have a joint, and have a couple of beers, play some music, hang out with whoever had away, and all the people were playing, and then go home, and TV1 used to have the Premier League highlights, a sort of hour-long package, and it didn't matter if you got home at like 12:30 because it was getting repeated on on the other channels. So it's cool.
Perfect night out.
Yeah, that to me was a perfect night out, and I still love the sport thing, and I did a lot of sport when I was a kid.
Yeah, what sports did you play?
Mostly I was too skinny, and I always remember my father taking me down to get the weigh-in at rugby, like he used to do, and I was this little kid, and my dad was there, and the guy who was in charge actually worked under my father, and so I saw him talking to my dad. It was kind of serious, and I was standing there knowing I didn't even really want to play rugby. It was kind of like I was a skinny kid. I wasn't very big, and here I was, 7 years of age, and and anyway, my dad couldn't talk him into the idea that his kid was going to play rugby, and so I started playing football, and I was much better at that. I always remember there was this Scottish guy in my first year, and that I was playing football, and it sounds kind of pretty corny now, but the ball came across in the air, and I dived and headed the ball into the net, and it was like, whoa, and at the end of the game, this guy gave me a half a crown, like it was back in the days when there was like half crowns. Yeah, that was cool. It inspired me to go on.
So you ended up playing, was it Central League? And
yeah. I did all that stuff, like at school. I was like, I don't think I was a very good captain, but I was captain of the first 11. I had to deal with my brother, which was always difficult with sport. We were like, not only were we in the same soccer team, because he was a really good soccer player, because when I first started playing football, he would come along, and he was 3 years younger than I would, and like the other team would be short of a player, and so he would play. And so for 3 years before he actually was eligible to join a team, he was playing against guys who were so he was like really, really good, but he was also like a really difficult guy to get on with. And we were in the school tennis team as well. I played tennis, and I was also on the athletics team. We were playing against Linwood. It was the only year that I was in the school tennis team, and I was the number 8 player, and he was like the number 4. He was pretty good at tennis, and so we're playing on those days. Linwood was our sister school.
Oh, okay.
Used to come down and play
Yeah.
Linwood, and so I'd done that right from a third form because I was pretty okay at athletics, and I'd got billeted with this guy Alan Chesney, who lived out at McCormick's Bay, and he ended up representing New Zealand in the hockey when they won the gold medal in Germany, I think it was, back in the 70s. Anyway, and so we were, this was when they'd come up to visit us, and so we were playing doubles together, and like all of a sudden we had this like huge crowd around the tennis court because he was getting really pissed off with me. And then I remember just before I had to go and run the 440 or whatever, he slammed a ball at me, and that really sort of like, that drew even more people in, so yeah. But thankfully, in later years, we got on fine. But
Well, you got some sort of balanced diet up there as well too, in terms of culture and music as well. What sort of early sort of music and cultural influences did you have?
it's funny that, because I got into music really when I was real young. Like, I wrote that article for Phantom Billsticker's Cafe Reader about the skinny kid who was like, who started. Music was right from the very start. It was around my family.
Yeah.
My mum played the piano. My uncle was the piano player at all the parties. And his son, my cousin, who was a bit older than me, was in a band and so we'd go out to their place at Titai Bay, and he was older, so he wasn't around, but he had a stack of 45s.
Oh, yeah.
Everly Brothers and all those 50s artists that like were, that I'd hear now and again on the radio. That kind of started it really. I never lost a love for the pop single. I still love pop music. I think it's really great. But anyway, that sort of led me off, and by the time by the time I hit college when I was 13 and it was 1962, all hell broke loose. There was the Beatles and the Stones and it was Bob Dylan I guess the Stones kind of took me down into that blues route, but Bob really took me down.
And how were you getting this music? Was it still like the 45s from your cousin, or were you exploring it?
I don't actually remember ripping off the lamp house of records, but some of my mates did. Yeah. We used to have listening sessions at lunchtimes, and mostly a guy called Roddy someone's place. He lived in one of those sort of 4-unit state, up, down, and we'd go around to his place for lunch, and we'd dance to all those, the Kinks and stuff.
Practicing your moves.
Yeah, practice the moves. But I would trawl through some of the, like Lamp House always used to have 10-cent bins or whatever they were, maybe a shilling, and. I'd pick up labels like stateside labels with artists that I didn't really know, but I knew that label would always have good stuff. So I actually had a pretty good record collection. In later years, I realised just how good it was because those artists became more known to me.
And you started like looking overseas for records too.
I did that that was for albums.
Yeah,
because you couldn't buy any blues albums or anything in New Zealand, and so yeah, I don't know how I got onto it actually, but I would have only been 15 or 16, and I used to pick up. You couldn't just do an order and pay for it. You had to. Our currency was limited because of, I guess they didn't want heaps of money going out of the country. So the only way you could order records and pay for them was by postal order.
Oh, yeah.
And the most you could buy a postal order would be like £5 English. So you'd go and buy a £5 postal order, and then you'd get like as many of them as you maybe, I don't know, I can't even remember how many, but I'd end up with a box of records 3 months later that was that would have about 15 or 20 records. And so, and a lot of the blues albums I've still got actually came from the States into England and then out
And then
here.
out to here,
Yeah, they
far
were
out.
imported into England. It was cool.
And what about playing music? When did you sort of
Oh,
start
so-
getting into
It
that?
was weird. Well, because I started off playing real young, ukuleles. We had ukuleles, and both of us had me and my brother had ukuleles, and like we'd play in the back seat of the car when we were going on holiday and stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty basic. I never got to be a great anything player, to be honest. But that's where I started. Then I got one of those guitars. Wayne will know what they are, with the F-holes. Hofner, I think
Yeah.
it was. I really wish I'd kept that. It was a really cool guitar. It was that kind of dark red. I don't even know what happened to it. But I had that, and I used to used to listen to. I guess everyone's done this. Like Backyard Davey would have done this. Like I'd be listening. I had a little radio. My dad bought me a radio when I was about 10 or 11 for my birthday. Some old guy had, tried to make an old radio look a little bit more flash by painting it white and red or whatever.
Yeah.
And but I used to just do that thing about going through the dial when I'd be lying in bed and picking up stations around New Zealand. And it was like there was like a really good station out of Hawke's Bay. Cham the Man, he was called. Anyway, you could pick up songs, and then I'd just I'd have the guitar in tune, and I'd just start playing the chords to the song. And that's about pretty much, my guitar playing hasn't improved that much since then. It's pretty much the same kind of style. What it did teach me was how to learn a song real fast. I didn't ever want to do the guitar solos. I just sort of learned how the song went, and then I could play it. And it was easy to figure out, what the chords were. There would always be a chord in some song that would kind of screw you up. But mostly, you could play the song pretty through.
So when did you start playing with other people? Was that still there?
Ages, really. I did play a little bit with other people after I left home and I'd moved into Wellington. Just thinking about that, I met this guy through one of my girlfriends who was a really good blues player, fingerpicker. And I remember staying up a few nights playing with him, and then one time I stayed up all night with him and then tried to go to work. And I was working on the terrace in Wellington, doing that. There was an overpass going in. It was kind of, my boss was an Austrian guy, and I had really long hair, and he hated me. He really, really hated me. And so this morning, after I'd been hanging up all night trying to learn how to do that guitaring stuff, he supposedly came up to me and said that I'd been asleep for half an hour. I swear to you, I don't think I had, but anyway, I got instantly sacked, which was actually a good thing because I ended up getting a much better job. But as far as playing guitar and everything, it wasn't until I was hanging out with I ended up living with a guy called Simon Morris, who's well known on Radio New Zealand for his film reviews and Matinee Idol and stuff. And he was a well-known Wellington musician who I'd met because I had a really good record collection. I met a whole lot of people when I came to Wellington who just came to me because I had this record collection of records that they hadn't seen and heard. So that was cool. I actually met a lot of people like that. Ended up hanging out with these guys. It was like Tony Beckhouse and Rick Bryant and all those people who, that was kind of the record collection was into that. But they were all in established bands, and they were all really good players. Bill Lake was another from the Windy City Strugglers. And so I was kind of out of my depth with them, even though Simon and I started writing a few songs together. We wrote a song together, thinking about it. There used to be Studio One was a TV program, and so we wrote this. If you could find out when the movie Performance was first released in New Zealand,
That's the Mick Jagger one.
Yeah. We went and saw that, and then Simon had this thing in his head about that we should have a song into the Studio One, and so I can almost see it now. We went home and we started writing a song, and I think Simon came up with the idea. One of us did that. It was around the time of like there was Knock Three Times and Congratulations, and they all sort of had that sort of that boom boom
Jaunty
boom kind of
kinda
thing, yeah. And so we decided that the song needed to have a something that you could slam your jug down on at the Working Men's Club, and we came up with Boom Boom. Boom Boom actually got an earring on Mate and Iota thinking about it. Not that I heard it, but someone told me that they'd heard it, and I know Simon played it, but this fellow Brian has found it. Anyway, we put this in. We went down to where Rick Bryant's place, and there was this other really well-known guy there who recorded it for us on like a 2-track. Yeah. And we had all these bottles clinking and everything, and we put it in under one of our flatmates' names, a woman called Margaret Ferguson, who was a teacher. And we said, sent this really cute note, and I'm Margaret Ferguson, and I've written this song, and I sing it with all my kids, and it goes boom boom. It was the most appalling song. It was like boom boom, my heart's beating like a big bass drum.
Oh no!
And whatever. Thinking back on it now, the middle eight went, "Oh my darling, ever since we met, turned my solo into a duet." I just thought that was pretty classy, actually. We were pretty impressed with that. So we went down, knocked out this thing, and Margaret's letter went in saying, I got my brother to record it and everything, and letter came back saying, "Thank you, Margaret. It's really really lovely," and blah blah blah. But we didn't think much of your song. And next year, after we weren't flatting together anymore, Simon was putting his entries into it, and he had 15 minutes left in the studio that he'd hired, and he did another version of Boom Boom and put it in, and it came back saying, you're now into this sort of final of the thing, and they had a New Zealand singers sing it, and they arranged it and everything, and it was pretty appalling, I have to say. There was a woman called Desna Sisrich who sung it, and she sung this song, and it had like the Greek guy who was a big record producer, and the radio guy, and Phil Warren were the judges, and they were like appalled. They went, "This is awful," and like we were sitting there with no expectations. But and finally the radio guy went, "I don't know, it's got something about it," boom. That was it. That was the end of Boom Boom. But the funniest thing about Boom Boom was the actual listener article, and I've kept a lot of things in my life, but I can't find it anymore. But it had a profile of all the people the 6 or 8 people whose songs had made it to the final. And Simon and I were there, and had this photo taken by some photographer. We looked like, this isn't meant to be derogatory, we just looked so fucking gay. It was like long hair, kind of like cheesy smiles and everything. But we'd written the most, it was the funniest piss take bloody little bio of who we were and how it came about, and it was like had this thing about like Simon and I, he came from Onslow and I came from Nine, and we met in the public services where we were working, and then Simon had got drafted to go to Wairua in the army and won a guitar and a sweepstake on the Melbourne Cup and shit. Like, it was all that kind of stuff. It was really funny.
You were at uni around this time.
Yeah. And so, but I didn't. Apart from that, would have been my biggest musical achievement in Wellington. Yep. Full stop. To be honest.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Oh dear. And maybe just a little hint of things to come.
And that's why you went to uni, was it, or no?
I went to uni just to have fun because the guy Mark Hansen, who I was flatting with initially, who was a drummer for Tamburlaine, which was Simon Morris's band. He said, "Don't bother going to London. It's way better fun. Having, uni would be really good." And so I went. So I went to uni, and I went to London years later. But it's pretty hard to sort of say that I made the right decision. But he was right about uni being lots of fun.
Yeah.
I definitely had. I had just. You get that stage where your uni life could actually, I could see why some people say, "Oh, well, I think I'll just stay and do another year."
Yeah, well, it is 7
another
years.
year of fun, but I started to get a little bit tired of it. And so, it was good that I left.
Yeah. And what did you get a degree in?
I got a degree in geography, which I would thoroughly recommend to anyone.
Yeah.
If you wanted a degree that is like thoroughly interesting to do. Halfway through at uni, they changed from just going to uni and getting 9 units in your degree, which was your, students were demanding more, better curriculum, more choice and everything. And so they took each unit and turned it into 12 units itself. And so and then they split that up into different categories, so you could choose out of 6 subjects to get your 12, say 6 subjects that maybe had 3 points or 4 points, and then that would make the 12. Yeah. So you had you could be more specialised. And also they introduced human geography as opposed to physical geography. You could do either one of those. Okay. And I really ripped into the human geography. That was so much fun, because really what it wasn't bullshit. It's kind of was real, but it was sort of like a bit of each of the other arts, like history and sociology and whatever. You sort of, it was actually really good fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I had two really good heads of department while I was there. One real right-wing guy and one real left-wing guy.
Another balanced diet. and so what happened after uni? Was you stuck around Wellington?
A little bit. I had some issues with women which haven't really sort of departed most of my life.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. And anyway, so things had become clear for me as to who I was going to be with, and we were going to go off to get out of Wellington. I really felt the need, and I got this van, and we were going to put a few miles on it.
Yep.
South Island, and we met some people here, friends of my girlfriend who actually came from here, and the guy, the husband of my girlfriend's friend, we had this idea. The first night I came to Christchurch, and we were staying with them. We came to a nightclub called Christie's, which was a really big time, and ended up going through a few things where it ended up being Adam's Apple, which was probably more known to most people.
Was that sort of Litchfield Street,
yeah,
was it? Yeah.
Right, you could walk out of the back door of Ballantyne's and walk straight across the road into Christie's. And it was full of antique furniture. It was, and like velvet walls. It was like I thought it was a pretty classy place. Yeah. Kind of, we hadn't had nightclubs like that in Wellington.
Oh, really?
We had like pretty dirty, scummy little nightclubs, really, is what I thought. Anyway, we had got talking, and we decided we're going to open this junk shop using his plan, and so I won't go into that. But we ended up within like less than 6 months opening up a junk shop on the corner of Papanura Road and Beeley Ave, which now has been for a long time a Thai restaurant right alongside Vesuvio, and it was called Junket. And that's when I met, well, actually, John O'Brien, who was my partner in Junket, his brother-in-law, kind of was an arty guy and played music and everything. And I'd met this other guy who was from Auckland who had come down here and opened up the first vegetarian restaurant somewhere over Hereford Street. I can't even think what it was called now. And he kind of was a singer, and so we started. It seems so dumb when I think back on it. We had a microphone sort of on a broomstick on the back of a chair that Ian sung through, and I had a guitar that I bought from Charlie Jemmett, who pulled 80 people on for his thing, just by the way. It's kind of like gauging my popularity alongside Charlie Jemmett, who's like such a beautiful, wonderful human being. Amazing. I've decided that so if I take my 10 or 12 people tonight, which I really appreciate, I would have to say that I'm somewhere way down the list of being a real nice, lovely guy. But anyway, Lee was quite a competent player. You know, he was pretty good, but we were pretty awful. And then I had a girlfriend whose brother. She said, "My brother's a drummer," so I didn't know any other drummers. So he came and started drumming for us. And Ian was working as a sub editor on the press, and he said, "Oh, there's a guy down on the printing floor who's a bass player." So we got this guy called Dick who would come to rehearsal with a flagon, or maybe 2 flagons even, and then he'd just put it up to his mouth and go. It wasn't like as if he was a big fat guy, and he was just this little guy who, I couldn't believe how much he drank. And we had this band called Vapor in the Trails, but neither of the rhythm section lasted that long, and we got this guy called Murray Olds, who's actually coming over to Littleton tomorrow, but he's much more famous for being, he was a reporter on the press, and then he went to Sydney and became big time as a sports reporter on the radio, and now you can hear him on national radio, or I think he's on News Talk as well, and they say, "Murray Olds from Sydney," and and this guy comes in, and he's a real kind of his accent hasn't changed much, but he had I've never, ever heard someone with so many kind of obvious New Zealand sayings that I'd never, ever heard before. And anyway, he joined.
So when were you playing? Were you sort of based at the junction, or were you gigging? Or?
No, we started off playing, and I can't think of this. I remember the last place we got booed out from because it was we'd finally scored a room in the arts centre.
Oh yeah.
On the first floor maybe, and but we were really loud, I have to say, and then we got terminated in terms of our room because some accountant was doing all her books upstairs at night time. It seemed like the most weirdest thing. We were more arty than the accounting, even though we were loud and noisy and really pretty shit. So we got booted out of there. So that's when we thought we needed to find a place. It was in 1976, and there was a bit of a crisis going on economically. I think maybe it was the second oil crisis. And we went around town. Ian instigated this, really. We went around town looking for places that weren't on the ground floor that could be cheap. Yeah. We found the old Mollet Street Market, which was really, really good. And by that stage, I had now had a bunch of friends. I'd met people like John Britton and his girlfriend Charlotte Thody had come back from overseas, and she'd hired this old butcher shop down on Victoria Street. Yeah. And we started doing arty-farty performance stuff out the back. It was real fun. It was and I wasn't that much good at that either, but I was a good sort of MC guy. So I did all the emceeing, and then we formed we might have rehearsed down there actually. Then we got Vapor and Trails going. And
in Mollet Street, that's just for those that don't know, that's sort of round.
Just down the road.
Just down the road. It's like between Senesive and Chewham, maybe? It's like a lane going the same way?
Mollet Street was a private street going between Colombo and Durham.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, is it Durham? Anyway, it was, and on the corner was the Longhorn leather store.
Yeah.
Obviously, that all came down to earthquakes. In fact, that's where just on the other side is where the bus with the people.
Oh yeah.
Who died. I've got a good story about that too, actually. But that's so we got Mollet Street. We looked at a couple other places, but when we offered the guy half what he was asking for it, and he took it. So that was good. And then I also had all these people that I'd picked up through the junk shop and everything. So now we had quite a little crew of people, and we were just going to have our own little private club because it just felt like it. We would. In those days, you could do a lot of entertaining of yourself without having to go. We'd go out to the pub now to get to see a band like Hello Sailor or something, but it wasn't like that much.
Yeah.
So we'd do that. We thought, okay, and we'd open up. So I built a stage. Didn't have a PA, so we got this part of the circle was a guy called Liam Ryan, and he had a really flash band. They were really good. I mean, undisputably, the drummer was not Dennis Abbott. What was his name, Wayne? Anyway, he was an Abbott, and he was like a fantastic drummer, and Liam Bryan was like keyboard
What kind of
player.
music was it?
They were playing like covers of Van Morrison and Boz Scaggs, and they were doing
yep.
that kind of pre-punk sort of stuff.
Yep.
That, you know, that would be called adult-orientated rock, I guess is what you'd call it. It was smooth as, and they were really good at it. I think John Parkinson was the bass player, and they had a really good PA and everything, and so, and they were on the periphery of my friendships, and so we got their PA, and they were going to play, and we were going to play, and we had a couple of other people. We had Michael Hurst, who went on to be famous because he was at the Court Theatre, and part of the crew that I had was Russell Smith, Count Homogenised. So they did a like a Pinter play. We were covering the Artie Farty sort of thing pretty good, and we had people like David Turner and David Gregory and Alan Franks, who were like three gay guys who were just lovely, and they did a real cool thing called I'm going to wash that man right over here. That's all they did, and they had these buckets of just confetti. And they picked up, I remember at the end of their their song, they picked up these buckets that no one saw and just heaved them into the audience, but it looked like there was water coming out. It was really quite clever. But, and then we had, that first time that we actually opened up, other people came, like, I don't know, how maybe friends of friends and things. And at the end of our 8-song, we'd only done one other gig, I think. At the end of our 8 songs, sort of set or whatever, a guy called Ian Costello came up to me and said, I've got a band who can do what you do, so can we come and play? And so I was sort of like, we were now caught in this thing about, are we going to open this up to more people, or are we going to keep our little thing? And so there was a little bit of issue going on there, and I guess sometimes I've been a bit kind of like, pushy, I will have to say, and I decided that I really wanted to open it up. Things were happening, and it felt like it just felt like the right thing to do. So we did, and all of a sudden we had not only that, we had like Bill Doreen's Vacuum Blue Ladder. We had all sorts of bands.
What's going on?
We had Wayne Jamison's band, who's here tonight, his band Thrush. We had such a variety, but a lot of very new, modern punky bands like Johnny Felox, the Basket Cases, Paul Keen's band, or he was in. There was Alistair Parker was in that band. There was a really interesting. It just pulled out all these people, and so every kind of second Sunday, we would open up, and we had 4 acts on a night. So and like my bossiness also said that you started at 8 o'clock, and if you were the first band, you started at 8 o'clock. If you didn't start at 8 o'clock and you started at 20 past 8, you still finished at like 8:45, and then the other band came on, and so you did that through to 12 o'clock. It was really successful. We'd pack it out, and we had the likes of the Enemy, Chris Knox's band.
Oh, wow, yep.
So, and it lasted about 18 months, I think. I've got a kind of record of every night that was there. Like the Top Twins, they came and played early on as Homemade Jam, and they were in the Territorials. Janice Gray, it was such a variety of people.
Wow.
And then the Citizen Band played there, and we had parties after parties, like the Graham Parker, and it was really fun. And we went, we actually ended up, Vapor on the Trails played pretty much every time, whether it was the first or the last gig of the night. Yeah, so we did that, and we did that for 18 months, and we ended up with a really big following.
Cool.
And I ended up becoming like the go-to person for all the press. So so all of a sudden I was like elevated into kind of like Christchurch music scene. It wasn't my design or anything. It's just what happened, and so it was kind of, it worked quite well for me because it sort of gave me some control over, like we went to the Gladstone and, you know, we got...
Was there like a residency there, or was
Well,
there...
the guy wanted it to be a residency, but I didn't want to do a residency because I didn't want to be tied down. But what I did want to do, which kind of sounds a bit wanky now to say, but I said to him, I'll book it for you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And that's where I sort of like first encountered Jim Wilson, because he was, by now the Hillsborough started to become big time for bands, and he was controlled that, and he really wanted the Gladstone.
Oh, yeah.
And,
This is Durham Street, right?
yeah,
Yep.
But Ray Newman, who was the guy who had, he took a liking to me, and you know, and so so we really actually killed it on the audition. We like, it was like $1 to get in, I think, but like the second week we had like 1,300 people to go through the you know,
1,300?
place in a couple of nights. Yeah,
right.
it was really. Because also the pub scene was restricted to a few hotels. It wasn't like,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
the hours were they were still 11 o'clock closing and stuff. And so, yeah, there was, if you wanted to go and see, I think around that time probably, maybe the Cowboys might have been big at the Carlton, or maybe a little later. But the bands that were big were much more mainstream.
Yeah.
Well, you could go to the Gladstone and you could see
Something a bit different.
more punky.
Yeah.
Which was fine until about I left the Gladstone by the stage, but like it became like the boot boy kind of pub for quite a long while. It got real violent and shit. Yeah.
So the Mollet Street sort of came to an end, and
yeah, Mollet Street came to an end. It was always going to come to an end. The Longhorn leather shop, he was getting to the end of it. It was quite amazing at Mollet Street. You could think it could be a bit scary at times. That floor, because it was all wooden and there were like wooden beams. Admittedly, they had to be big, thick wooden beams. There was probably no way that it was going to come down. But the leather shop had this sort of like, you know, the old-fashioned. It wasn't gym board, it was like plaster, and it had sort of like, you know, had sort of wooden struts through it. And so, and then it was obviously nailed in, and then through all the nail holes, as the floor would go up and down and everything, with the people going nuts, it started to loosen up the plaster, and the plaster started falling out of the holes onto the sheepskins, and you know, and it was like a nightmare for him. And then the one weekend I think that I was away, and I left it in charge of my friend, who was a lovely guy but so useless in so many ways. The toilet blocked up, and like he was like getting to the point where, you know, we weren't his friends, and so it was kind of good that we went looking.
Yeah, Burger Bar downstairs.
The Burger Bar he loved us. The Burger Bar went nuts. It started with an M, but I can't think what it was, what it was called now. But yeah, he was a lovely guy. And of course, like Sunday nights, when Mollet Street was happening, was just boomer business for him. So
did Vapor and the Trails sort of come to an end around the same time? And
no, we went into the Gladstone, and it was we'd go down to Timaru and do 2 nights down there, and like over the coast. I think we did. I know that it's easy for musicians to kind of exaggerate about what they do and how much they pull, but like I can sincerely tell you that we'd go to Timaru and we'd do 2 nights at the terminus there, and we'd do at least 300 people, and it was like, I can't think what we were asking in those days. It would have been, couldn't have been much more than $3, I don't think. We went over to, I remember doing a tour on the coast. I say a tour. We did Westport, Greymouth, and then we did the last night in Hokitika at the Southland. That was just the worst upstairs where we were accommodated. Like, it was just damp and mouldy and shit. There was, going out on the road was like, because I was in my like mid-20s by now, and I'd had pretty like, I don't know, kind of sounds a bit wanky to say that I had a bit of I felt like I was living quite a sophisticated lifestyle. You know, my girlfriends all seemed to be quite posh, and they definitely weren't sort of like going along to Mollet Street and jumping up and down on the floor. And or going to the Gladstone for that matter. And so I sort of led the slightly double life of having really nice place I was living in, and because I'd been in the junk shop, I liked nice things around me and stuff. So when we went and stayed in like the Terminus, horrible. You know, when we went and stayed like in any of the pubs on the West Coast, it was awful. So then we finally, but we were popular.
Yeah.
We didn't do a lot of originals, but we did a lot of songs that people didn't know. We covered, because of my record collection and because you could still be up ahead of the kind of pack back in those days. If you were, like we were mad bloody person like me, we were doing Johnny Thunders, we were doing Richard Hell and the Voidoids. We were doing really interesting covers of bands that weren't that well known.
Yeah.
And also I think that one thing that I'd got from my days in Wellington and watching bands and watching my friends play, I think this was kind of like has served me real well, was that I was watching them and I'd watch the way that they put their sets together and everything and think, you haven't got your set together right. Like you're doing the song here it's climaxing your set way too early and things. And I think that one of my lessons of possibly why I wasn't a musician earlier was that I was learning about how bands worked, how they played the stage and how you could manipulate an audience to have a really good time. And in the end, I think that's probably, if I was being realistic about my sort of first 30 or 40 years, is that I became pretty adept at knowing how to work a room.
Yeah.
And I had really good musicians around me, because I wasn't the greatest guitar player. So all my bands had a really good lead guitar player, and all my bands had really good rhythm section. And so really I always saw my job as being like the guy to call the songs and deliver the
almost like
fronting.
an MC kind of DJ kind of
who wished that he'd had a greater voice than he had, but did and sung as well. And I wouldn't think that I would think that so much now. Say since the earthquakes, I would like to think that I've got a little better, but
So you're talking about I guess sort of party bands in a way too. So
Well, I only say that because in the end, the nature of I guess the Trails was like a party punk band, but there was because we didn't get super serious about originals.
Yeah.
And though we did play some pretty okay originals. Then I hung out with Bill Ham. After that split up after we did a tour of the North Island. Oh yeah. Which was real fun, and I have to say that I could see why, when I saw the Stones first in in 1965 maybe, that I was just, like I said, a skinny kid, but man, the first thing that I thought about the Stones when they came on stage was how skinny they were. They were just like these skinny English guys. Yeah. And going on tour, even though we kind of I went away and I came back, I'm probably half a stone.
Half a stone.
Yeah, half a stone. Well, it was still in those days. Yeah, it was brutal. It was so much fun.
And what was your next band? It was Old Dennis?
I had Old Dennis.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, I moved to Littleton in that time.
Because Bill Hammond, this was the connection with Bill
Hammond.
Yeah.
He was my neighbour, but we were, our houses were sort of separated by a lane, which was a paper road, Littleton has lots of paper roads. So we weren't like a neighbour that he was just living over where Ken is and I'm here. It was you had to go across the lane to his place. But we both started having relationship issues, and we started hanging out more and playing more, and playing because he played drums. He had the worst drum kit, but it was also the best drum kit. It was like old, and it was sort of taped together and everything, because he was so poor. And I mean, he was really, really poor, and he had his 2 boys, and we started playing, and we were called Old Dennis because lots of people heard this, but there used to be, so this is around 1979 or whatever, that appeared in Christchurch, this 0 with a line dividing the middle of it, and then a D afterwards. Someone has actually explained what that meant at one stage, but I've forgotten what it was. And we'd had a bit of a session this night, and I had this beautiful old F.J. Holden. I don't know why I say that other than that we were driving down Brougham Street. I do remember that. And Bill said, hey, maybe we should form a band. And I said, oh, yeah, okay. What should we call it? He said, call it OD. And I was like, oh, okay. What's OD stand for? Old Dennis. Oh, okay. So that night we went home, we were jamming, and we came up with this Old Dennis song, which I actually want to put out this year. It's actually a pretty cool song. It was really shuffly and kind of was mad, but it was had some sort of beauty to it. And so then we started playing down in the British Hotel.
Oh yeah.
And in many ways, there's this pattern through my life of playing with other musicians. So there was the 2 of us, much the same way as like my Littleton Wednesday gigs. It was just me and Adam Hadaway, when we started those, but other people started coming around for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really kind of up to us to say, no, you couldn't come around. And in much the same way as that happened with Old Dennis, and it had a fluctuating kind of, there would be people say, oh, I can play guitar. Oh yeah, okay, you can play guitar, And sometimes people I didn't even want to play, but Bill was very kind of sort of like, well, I remember this guy, Martin, he turned up and he wanted to play guitar, and I was like, oh, he had a flying V, and and then it's so awful, and I said, oh no, and he said, oh yeah, but Martin's he's got a broken heart, he's got nothing, we've got to look after him, and whatever, and it's like, so it was like that really, but we could take it down to just the 2 of us, and we only ever played out of Littleton twice. One time at the Gladstone, I think, I can't remember on whatever night, it was an early weeknight, I can't remember much about that. The other time, though, I can remember, because we were hired by the university at Lincoln. I can't imagine how, actually, but we were. And we took 6 people out there, and we just did the most stupendous gig. We just did such weird songs. And on a big stage with like, Bill's drum kit was all taped up, and it was like really shit. And it was like they wanted to mic it up and stuff. But our support, we were supporting the Mockers, who had just started. Now, I really rate the Mockers. I think they were really good, but they might as well have just stayed home that night. It was just bizarre, honestly. It was like weird. We were down on the floor, everyone nuts, and then it was like the night was over. 2 hours, and bammo, they were like, it was so bizarre. Mike Lewis was doing the sound, I think, and he was like, what the... He was a pretty famous sound amplification guy in Christchurch.
So the next band was, I guess after a little interlude overseas, was the legendary Louie and the Hot Sticks.
Yeah, which everyone says. But like coming back, and like Wayne, who's here tonight, I met him, and I'd come back from there, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I came back to be with the woman who I'd actually left here for.
You'd been in the
I'd been in LA. Yeah. I always wanted to go to a big city because I'd missed out when I actually ended up here the first time, and I thought, I've got to go and live in a big city to just get a taste of what it's like, because I thought that that's where I would be. And while I really kind of liked it, and while I sort of started to make some contacts, I also just thought Littleton had been so cool for me, and it felt so good, and so I came back here, and then I was just like, I had to have something to say to people about what I was going to do, so I would just go, well, I'm going to form a band. And then I was out at the Aranui on a New Year's Eve, and I bumped into Wayne, and you know, I didn't know him that well, but like was talking, and somehow he was a bass player, and I was kind of like, well, here's a bass player, and then that was kind of like the best move I could make. I've always needed to have people to help me.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, I've been blessed with people all my life who have helped me big time, and Wayne was one of them. And so he sort of was like, I wouldn't want to say he was my right-hand man, but he helped me put a band together.
Yeah.
Admittedly, it was potentially could have been a good band, but it didn't end up with those initial people.
There's a little bit of rotating.
It took about a year, I think, before we started to get near what a lineup was.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't even know how we started to get gigs, but because we did play in the Gladstone for a while, but you know, we were paying the sound man $150 and we were paying ourselves $5. It was like, it was all sort of wrong, and it was not working, and people were leaving, but when someone was leaving, we actually got someone else. In fact, we started just thinking about it now, because I don't want to sort of do the drug thing too much, but like initially, I guess the first version was a bunch of mostly stoners of very different drugs, and then it slowly ended up being actually people who weren't into drugs very much, and the balance sort of went back that way, and that's when the band really became really good. And we had a really good drummer, and so the rhythm section was real good, and we got a young guy who was a really good guitar player. Danny, who was our sax player, left to go and join a band called Icky Star that had a guy called Wayne Beecroft, who I'd always wanted to have as a drummer, and really keeping things pretty short. We went out and we started playing. I know that we played quite a few private functions, and in fact, the person who became the mother of my children, my wife, she was working at Coca-Cola, and we got hired to do this, but I can't remember those times of why, how they got onto us. Yeah. But I do remember that, like, everywhere we went, we were just like, I have to say, that was a party band. It was, you know.
Your big gigs at the Marine and...
Well, then we didn't get to the Marine. It was a bit of a roundabout. I don't know if anyone went to the Sandridge, but we went to the Sandridge and I went to them and asked them if they would hire us for a gig, because I checked it out and they had some people I know playing there. I sort of knew them. And I said, look, that band's doing nothing for you. Why don't you hire us? We'll put some people in here. And this guy who was the manager, big, tall guy, I always remember him much. He was like at Colin Meads. And he... So he hired us, and we went. He sacked the band, and we went. And like those 2 weeks, I don't know how many it was, but the Sandwich was pretty packed up. But anyone who was running a bar would have said, I think I'll hire these guys, because these guys are actually putting in a pretty big crowd of people. Yeah. And into the second week, when night finished, I was expecting to kind of do some sort of deal with him, and he was just like, oh, I'm sorry, man. Didn't call me man. I'm sorry. I've hired some of the fellas who are in a band called Friar Tuck, and they're playing here next week. And I was like, I truly didn't understand how that worked. I was like, you have to be stupid. But Helen got wind of the fact that the Marine had just sacked their band for being too loud, and she went out there, and we got an audition there. Auditioned. The guy was a little short guy. He wore platforms. He had seriously short man syndrome. He had a comb over. I know that he's dead, and it's probably not good to talk about him in terms that aren't anything but complimentary, but it was difficult to be complimentary to him. we went out to the. He said at the end of the night, "We'll come out to the public bar and we'll do it. We'll talk. You know." And so, and he said to me, I said, "Well, okay, whatever, blah blah." And he said, "This is the deal." He said, "Like, you guys get 75% of the door, and I get 25% of the door. And the door at that stage of life was $3." And it remained $3 the whole time we were there, which was close to 4 years. And I said to him, "What is your 25%?" And he said it was that he did the advertising and he covered the guy on the door security guy. And I said to him, "Well, why don't you give me 100% and I'll do the door and I'll do the security thing." And we shook on that. But he always kind of resented me for that, I think. It was never like we were good buddies, even though he was making. It was just nuts how that pub was going and how well we did there and how much fun it was. The fact that people still come up to me about the Marine. It's probably not quite as often as even 5 years ago, but it's, for a lot of people, it was the go-to place. Yeah. Okay. And it was a big pool of people because, I mean, we were pulling really, really good money through the door. So I was living off that. You didn't have to work to sustain yourself. Like, you know, I guess we're maybe in 1982, probably $400, $500, $600, $700, depending on the week. It was real constant. It was really, and so that band sort of really was going along, and then the Icky Star band broke up about the same time as our drummer, who was real straight. His wife really dominated him and said, "You're leaving those wild people who, you know, whatever." And so, and at that stage, Danny, who had been our sax player and then gone to Icky Star with Wayne, came back and said, "I'm up for coming back and I can bring Wayne with us." And that really changed the band. Yeah. Probably that band lasted, that version of the band was definitely the best and lasted for probably 3 years. It was real good. Cool.
Just, I guess in the interest of time, I might have to jump in here. Like, seriously, I wanted to do a 3-parter for this one. There's so much good stuff. So, I mean, I know there's been other bands along the way. I was just interested about Echo Records, how that came about in your role there. We can pop back just briefly on the other bands, but was that sort of around then, or was it a little bit later that you?
That was a little bit later, because after then we had a band called Big Elvis, which I'll skip over that, but which that was interesting. But Big Elvis, I met once ago. I met Nikki Park and at the Marine, and sort of like, so she became my girlfriend, and then and she was from a pretty wealthy family on Richmond Hill. I had a really little dunger of a shack on Littleton, which, you know, I'd bought super cheap, and so when I met her, she had plans to go overseas, and I thought that it was actually good that she went away, and rather than said, "Oh, I'm going to stay and be with you," and then, like, you know, 6 months down the track going, "Why did I stay for, you know, blah blah blah." So so she took off, and about that stage, not long after she'd taken off, or just around the time she took off, I quit the band, and I was in Echo Records. Maybe I didn't quit quite then, but anyway, I was in Echo when they just moved over to High Street. From
where were they beforehand?
Pardon?
Where were they beforehand?
They were in New Regent Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they still had that store in New Regent Street, and they were taking a big gamble and opening up they were going not going out of second hand. They were going to augment their second hand with new. Yep. And they and so I'm in there one day, and Daryl, who I knew because I played football for Ducks and blah blah blah, his partner was actually selling out because he had another business going on, and Daryl said, blah blah, Lester's leaving. How do you feel about coming and working here for a bit? And I thought, oh, that's cool. I haven't had a day job for and I can add this to my band money. And I thought, with Nicky going away, that if I could earn $1,000 a week, then I'd be doing pretty well for myself, and I could do the house up and a bit, and stuff, which sort of became my plan. And so that's what happened. But I did say to him that I didn't want to start before 10 a.m. in the morning, which I continued that thing for the whole time. When they brought contracts in, I couldn't figure out the rest of the staff why they didn't actually demand more from there, because you could.
I heard you were the first to get, was it maternity leave?
Yeah, got maternity leave. I got no weekend work or public holiday work. I had a pretty good deal going on there, to be honest.
And you were the specialist for second-hand and rare and imports and that sort of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was such a fun job. I always say that working at Echo was like being on the set of a sitcom. It was and all I did was talk all day, really. I used to think my office was out in the pavement in the front of Echo. I'd be out there quite a lot of the time, but also I was busy. I wasn't I wasn't slacking around. It was quite amazing how many buys you could do in a day. Between 40 and 50 buys a day some days.
Oh, right, okay.
I know. Just bam, bam, bam.
And so El's Bar, was there a crossover with Echo and El's Bar, or
No,
did you sort of
not
stop
at all.
one and start the
No.
other?
Thankfully, I tried to get out of El's Bar and buy the Wunderbar. I always thought if I thought there was a bit of a glitch in my life of just living the life of how I wanted to live it, and I won't say that it was actually, heaps of money or anything, but it had a lot of freedom and a lot of freedom to move in my own, I didn't feel tied down to Echo. It was really kind of cool, and it was, I still played music all the way through there. I sort of thought, I knew York. I'd been at the opening of the Wunderbar. Classic line from Bill Hammond at the Wunderbar when it opened, actually, just thinking about the opening of the Wunderbar. We were standing over in the corner of the Wunderbar where the steps used to go down to the supermarket, because it was above the supermarket on the mezzanine floor. And Hammond and I in the corner, and it was only the front bar at that stage. And he said to me, "Yeah, beat them at the war, now we've got them pouring our piss." I thought that was so Bill Hammond. It was so, because York was so, he'd sort of built straight off the whole kind of like the Nazi Jew thing that was going on and stuff. So it was kind of like a pertinent comment. Anyway, so I thought that was my destiny actually to buy that, and I kind of did. I negotiated a price with York. My father-in-law, who was really wealthy, and I was really amazed when he said he'd give me all the money to buy it, but then I couldn't get a lease from the supermarket. That's quite a complex story, but I never did. And so, I thought, so finally now leaving Echo, I started to think that I really needed to get out of there. It had started to become less fun, CDs with kind of big bars but I didn't get out, and I was there for probably another 18 months, and Daryl wanted out, and he sold to Real Groovy.
Oh, yep.
Who I would like to say were not real groovy at all. They were really, really ungroovy. They were the worst capitalist arsehole people. And Auckland people loved them. I know that they were like, everyone said, "Oh, Real Groovy, such a cool store." It was... even going to Real Groovy was uncool, I thought. It was like all the staff were just... It was so different from what Echo was, which was super pseudo... It was the difference between the North Island and the South Island, really, where you had like friendly, helpful staff and people who were fun. And then, and so they came in and they had a totally different system than Echo. And so my kind of renegade role of being the I was on them, it just didn't fit into their corporate way of doing things. They had a system of buying that was, didn't rely on. I mean, I used to give people really good deals who I knew because obviously they were my friends, and they'd come back and shop, and then anyone who wasn't my friend, I'd just do what you normally do as a dealer, So, but don't get me wrong, Daryl didn't keep me there because it wasn't doing real well. It did real well, and I was ready to go. And in the end, I couldn't go because I still had a mortgage to pay and everything, and I moved into Real Groovy, who after 6 months called me up to the meeting and said, we're making you redundant, which was kind of like, it was life-saving really, because it actually gave me no choice. I had to go
to
and
push.
do something.
Yeah.
And then Ian Whitehead, who had been a singer in the Trails, who was still a really good friend and worked for the council and had bloody heaps of time swanning around town because of his job looking after all the recreation centres and everything. Not that the council knew this. And a vehicle said, come on, let's open that bar that you've always wanted to open. And he sort of like basically pushed me into looking around and encouraging me to look for a place. And he came up with the LA's bar. He said, I was at this party, I know the LA's bar, and, they want to sell it. They've been trying to sell it for 2 years.
It's Dundas Street?
Dundas Street, yeah. And so when I went and looked at that, I was like, yeah, it was a big leap to go to actually start something new. And once again, like my friends like Wayne Jamison, in fact, there had been 10 or 12 friends dating back from Wallet Street days who came in and that helped me in so many ways. I would have never... Elsbar would have never, I can take some credit for Elsbar, but like I've got to say that, like a lot of things that I've done, really it's been all the people around me who have I don't know, I mean it's really kind of, I feel as I've got older how lucky I've been to have had friendships that have helped me so much.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying that. Most of those people, I mean, like what Adam Hadaway said tonight, I know that it's probably been a two-way thing, but like I've been lucky and blessed to have people sort of giving me their support.
And they're kind of, I don't know, it seems like a nice segue to the Harbour Union, because that's about support, isn't it?
I have to say that obviously the earthquake changed everything for all of us. But that Littleton thing after the earthquakes and the Harbour Union, which basically was Adam McGrath, and I know for what Adam is and isn't, I love him. He's such an awesome guy, and he's got so much in him going for him but he pretty much came up with the Harbour Union concept. The people involved in that Harbour Union, the camaraderie and the love, it's kind of weird to talk about love because you kind of think that it's a bit weird, but I'm not weird, but to say the love between us it's still all there. Something happened that was so strong that and I think that I like to think that I've actually probably more than anyone in there, and I could be wrong here, someone might want to throw something at me, but I think that I was so taken with the whole way that we all interacted and what we did that I've really pushed to keep that vibe that we've had, and I swear to you that it's still there. And we've pulled other people into it. I'm proud to think that, like Adam Hadaway and like, Ryan Fisherman and Tess Lure too, and people who have entered into our sphere by whatever. Barry Saunders. I mean, you couldn't say that Barry Saunders wasn't, a Harbour Union guy. He was. Aaron Tokona. There's like a heap of other really, really who got pulled into that kind of that vibe, that love of each other and musically and things. That has been in many ways. You can't say what's better and better, but the Hot Six was truly a glorious time, and the Harbour Union, for all the sadness and all how difficult times were, it's still such a powerful thing.
Yeah, and it resonates, and there's a lot of the same people who performed your songs.
Yeah.
Better already.
Yeah. No, I'm really proud of that album. And I'm like Delaney, who, you know, was obviously a Harbour Union guy as well. He was off touring a lot more after that, but he's still so integral. I thought Delaney did a great job with that album. I've been saying recently again, because I just listened to it a couple of months ago, what a good job he did.
Yeah.
And what a good job everyone did.
Yeah.
That all the singers did not have a choice, A, of song, or B, of key. That Delaney recorded the songs, and then we kind of like sort of just slowly gave them out. And Marlon got the second to last song, I Want You Back song, and like it wasn't really his sort of song, but it's interesting how he did that song. Yeah. Oh, the Harbour Union has been responsible for whatever my life has been since the earthquakes, I have to say.
Yeah.
I'd be denying it. But, so the other people who would be Adam Hadaway and Elmore Jones. They are such talented people, and they're such good friends. That's been a nice thing for me, is to have friends of all ages. I know that it starts sounding a bit like sentimental and shit. You know.
Sorry.
But,
Yeah, I feel bad because we've had to skip a little bit. You know, there's all these other bands like, you know, your Latter Day Sinners. I think you're with them the longest. And,
Yeah.
And,
really.
That
was a good band.
It was a good band?
Yeah, it was a good band. It was really good. I had Bruce Hamling playing drums, Bruce and Wayne Jamison rhythm section, Phil Jones, who Elmer's dad, a really good guitar player. It started out like seemingly so many of my bands as being a little bit more serious and probably a little less appealing to people. And then we were playing regularly at the Pegasus Arms and every Friday, and people were turning up, and they were all suits and things like that, and they started hiring us for their parties. And so when we went to play their parties, we played, you know, more sort of material that people wanted to party to.
Yeah.
And so there had to be a time when that came to an end, but like we had a pretty good run as being a wedding band for a long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were a good band.
Yeah.
We could definitely give people a night out.
Yeah. And you're still performing.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, you're still. It's Wednesday nights at Commoners, is it?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it-
That's
your best place to come and see you.
Oh, it's a good place to come and see me. I don't know.
One of the
I
many.
think pretty much most of the gigs I play, I'm pretty happy with the way they go these days.
Cool.
I mean, whether it's solo or whether, but the Commoners is a night where no money passes hands, and it's like just a bunch of people. It's always different, and still like young players. Like tomorrow night we have Sam White playing guitar, and he's only like 25, and he plays in Hadaway's band and around town. And you know, there's still like Mark Hamilton, who's been playing with me for all those times in Littleton.
Cool.
Real good young guys and real good old guys.
Cool. And not only are you performing, but you're recording.
Well, I mean, you know, it seems like recording for me seems like you do the recording. I had a fantastic little time doing down in Sublime, but it was like 3 years ago. And now it's just on the edge of being released. And that was with Adam Hadaway and Elmore, and they've done all the production and most of the playing. And like, I'm really, really pretty proud of this album that they've done. They did Pony. This one's going to be called Monkey, though the actual real title is a bit difficult to get your head around maybe, but it's called One for the Dog, One for the Cat, and One for the People with a Monkey on Their Back. So shortened to just Monkey, which kind of is, I don't know, whatever you want to think about that. But slightly different, bit of a different direction for half of the album, in terms of like not being quite so rock and roll.
Okay. Well, a little treat for you folks here tonight. We're going to hear a wee song from that once we've finished up in a moment. So
Yeah. I imagine that everyone would be getting near that point where they think, let's finish up. But can I just say that it's real nice you turned up tonight, and like, you know, I had fun talking to Dan when last week when he wanted to take some notes and everything like that. So I want to thank you too, Dan, because it's real nice meeting you.
you too.
I knew Dan's wife, who was an early person in the Runaround Sue band, who I played with for a little while. But it's been real nice meeting you.
Yeah.
I thank Gretchen and Michael for the idea, and I'm sorry that we didn't get a few more people, but that's all good. And thank you, Kelvin. You've always been good on the sound.
For those that are here, did anyone have a question for Al? Put your hand up if there's anyone out there had a wee question, just to take the opportunity. If not, well, here's a question.
Can I ask a question, Dan?
Oh yes.
Al, when did you start songwriting? And how long, have you always written songs? And is that something that's really special to you? How does it come to you?
I've written songs probably for a long time, but like right back from my early days. But like, I've found my songs I'm not one of those guys who can just sit down and write a song. I like some of my friends like Delaney could sit down and write a song. Let's write a song, Delaney will say. You'll be with them. Oh, what are we doing? Oh, let's just write a song. I find that really tricky and hard to do, but I think that songs come to me like a lot of songwriters do. The whole songs are spinning round, and you're just an antenna or a receptor for them. So my best songs, I feel, have just come, those ones that people talk about. Oh, it only took me 5 minutes to write. Some of my best songs have just come like that. Sometimes I've had a song, the bones of a song, and then like Melt Me With Your Kiss. I had the song, but I didn't have any chorus. I didn't have the Melt Me With Your Kiss sort of line, which, but when I got that, I thought, oh, this is perfect. This is how that works. I love writing songs, but I wouldn't have like written more than 100 completed songs in my whole life, which is not very many when you think of how Bob Dylan's written, like, I don't know. How many has Dylan written, Adam? 800 or something? Maybe 1,000? I don't know. But yeah, I love it because it's so much fun when you get it. But you've just got to wait for it, really. For me, I can't force myself to write a song. I get some really interesting songs. That's the other weird thing about my songwriting, is that it's like Barry Saunders, who's a real good friend. Like a Barry song is basically, he's got 3 ways of writing a song. He's got like a G, D, A minor, C sequence, which he writes huge number of songs using exactly the same chords, and then he has just a banging thing on the E or the E minor, and it might go to an A, and then might just have another little change. But essentially, he has 3 sort of chord sequences that he uses, and he just every time you think, oh, that's just like that other song, and then he'll record it, and you'll think, man, that's amazing. You've turned that song into something that doesn't sound like the song that I thought you first played. So I can't decide. I can't write a song that I would say, oh, that's an Al Park song, because they all come out a bit different. It's a bit weird. And sometimes I think also that with songwriting that it comes back from where I first grew up as a kid, and those old songs that my folks were singing around the piano. I sometimes think some of my songs are real old-fashioned. They have nothing to do with rock and roll, So, but yeah, I still love it, and I've still got a whole new bunch of songs that I'm going to hound bloody Elmore and Adam to go on another little week holiday down in Kurau and have some fun recording and walking those roads at night. That was such good fun. I don't care really about like it. I'm sort of had such a nice life playing music and living in this town. The idea of actually slogging away, trying to sell myself or my records, albums or anything doesn't seem to be like, the best part is actually just doing it, you know, whatever happens to people like it or not. I mean, my Spotify listeners have gone down to 29 this month, you know, so I'm not expecting that they're going to climb above the 70 or whatever they used to be. Yeah. It's not a big deal. It's like, it's more the fun of doing it and getting rid of it, putting it out and doing some more. More fun playing live. I'd say that, just to sum up my life in music, I've loved playing live. I love the intimate, the closeness of people, so not even big venues, just like this is a beautiful venue to play because you're close to the people and you get a good sound and, you know, so as long as I can stand up and play guitar in front of people, I'll be doing it, more so than actually thinking about recording and writing.
Thanks. Any other questions out there? No other questions? Oh, well, it is just for me to thank Al. Thank you very much for coming along and sharing tonight. Also just want to thank the sponsors again. That's Monster Music and Liquorland Wigram. And also, we've got some more of these coming up. If you're interested, just leave your name at the, I think there's a register just at the door. Just pop your name and email if you want to get some more details on the next one and the next one and the next one. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Stay safe and stay warm. Thank you.
Thank you.